Europe moved this week to propose stronger defence and strategic ties with Australia. But what exactly does that mean? I spoke to Jennifer Parker, Defence and National Security Expert Associate at ANU, about this a short time ago.
In terms of what they're exactly suggesting beyond closer ties is not entirely clear. But we have seen the European Union Commission try and strengthen its relationships in the Indo-Pacific over the last couple of years. We saw the signing of a defence and security pact with South Korea. We've seen one with Japan, both signed in 2024. And we have seen more broadly, so not so much EU Commission, but NATO involving the NATO +4 in a lot of their key meetings, which is New Zealand, Australia, Japan, and South Korea. So it's not surprising that the EU Commission is keen to strengthen defence and security ties with Australia, but it got a bit of a lukewarm response from Prime Minister Albanese. So I'm not sure we're there yet, but I think it is an interesting development. There could be some benefit for Australia in this.
Tone was one you could say of cautious optimism about the move, but I guess the question is it in our interest? Is it a good deal?
Look, I think it is in our interests broadly to have a defence and security relationship with the European Commission. Of course, we have been increasing our defence and security relationship with Europe over the previous years. I mentioned before we've been attending the NATO meetings as part of the Indo-Pacific Four. We've had a number of European countries send their maritime assets out. We've seen French aircraft carriers, Italian aircraft carriers. We're about to see a British aircraft carrier trailed by a bunch of other European ships visit the region. And it is important that we do keep Europe interested in the Indo-Pacific. Of course, Europe has key economic ties to the Indo-Pacific, but I think from a security perspective, it does send a message to China that Europe is not looking away from the Indo-Pacific and what they're doing in this region. And that helps us. More broadly, of course, the agreement doesn't exist yet. So if we are to go ahead, Australia has a lot of opportunity to shape this agreement because Europe is very keen on it. And there are opportunities for us to collaborate with the European Commission on space, aspects of maritime security, and also a potential market for our defence industry. So depending on how it shapes up, there could be a lot of benefit to Australia.
Everyone thinks it's a great idea. What are some of the downsides?
Look, there are some downsides. Of course, the European Commission is famous for being overly bureaucratic. And there are concerns that we could be linked into some of their bureaucracy with this agreement. I don't think that is the case. When you look at the templates, which are the agreement between the European Commission and Japan and the agreement between the European Commission and South Korea, it's more about dialogues and collaboration rather than standards and regulations. I think the second concern people have raised, and this is a legitimate one, is what does the message look like to our partners in the region, specifically our Southeast Asian partners and our Pacific partners, that we're looking to Europe, which seems far away for defence and security relationships. Now, I think that can be managed, though, in terms of making sure that if it is to go ahead, and of course we're only in the initial stages of discussing it, that it is messaged to the region in terms of why we think it's important. And it's obviously backed up with us continuing to strengthen our defence and security relationships across the Indo-Pacific region. We've seen that with a focus on our relationship with Indonesia. We are expecting a defence and security agreement with Papua New Guinea to be signed soon. So focusing on our region and messaging that how our relationship with Europe can help benefit security in the Indo-Pacific would be the important way to approach it. We need to make sure that it isn't received in the same way that the AUKUS announcement, Australia's acquisition of nuclear-powered submarines in 2021, the way that was announced, it seemed a surprise to the region and it got them offside. So we have to avoid something like that. But I think we can manage the concern of the region in terms of the view that Australia might be getting security from outside of the region by strengthening our partnerships in the region.
What do you think it says about Europe's position as it faces conflict in Ukraine and increasing uncertainty with reduced support from the US?
Look, I think that it shows that Europe is keen to diversify its defence and security ties. Of course, the pacts that are being suggested here and the pacts they've agreed with South Korea and Japan certainly don't supplement their alliance relationship with the US, but it does create a broader coalition of thinking on defence and security. And also it shows how the Indo-Pacific and the Euro-Atlantic and security in both of those regions are linked. And I think that that was very clear when we saw last year North Korean troops being deployed to Russia. And of course, we've seen North Korean support and Chinese support for Russia in their illegal invasion of Ukraine. So I think Europe is trying to diversify ties clearly. I think also they are trying to send a message to China that they do care about what's happening in the Indo-Pacific region, and they are trying to strengthen ties to also counter that, which is certainly in Australia's interests.
Do you think, though, that Europe has more to gain in this pact?
No, I don't think that's the case. Certainly some commentators have said that. I don't think they have more to gain. I mean, the pact doesn't exist yet, and the terms and conditions are what we negotiate. And of course, we will negotiate for what's in Australia's best interest if it is to go ahead. And Europe certainly is well ahead of us in some areas in terms of dealing with, foreign information interference. They're certainly well ahead of us in terms of space capability. So there are a lot of opportunities for Australia as well in terms of the design of what this agreement might look like. In terms of what Europe is getting from Australia, look, certainly the signalling in terms of Australian support, but I don't think it's correct to say that Europe would get more out of this than Australia. I think there is a lot of opportunity for us.